Our journey begins on the northern coast of Sicily, near the capital city of Palermo. We then head toward the province of Agrigento for a tour of the greatest collection of Greek temples outside of Athens. Once in the province of Enna, we take in one of the best views in all of Sicily, before travelling east across mountains and farmland as we make our way to Syracuse, reputedly the most beautiful city of ancient Greece. From there we explore the eastern shore at Taormina, the island's top tourist destination. We make our way to Mount Etna, the largest and most active volcano in Europe. Finally, we discover the coastal city of Messina, the oldest port in Sicily. As we speed along the runway of Palermo Airport, we catch our first glimpse of what lies in store for our journey. More than 4 million passengers travel down this same stretch of runway each year. Visitors from far and wide are drawn to the raw beauty of Sicily, a place forged by fire which so characterizes the spirit of this land and its people. The appeal of the rugged, mountainous terrain and pristine beaches are matched by some of the oldest and most beautiful cities in all of Italy. The village of San Ciparello, a more recent addition, was rebuilt in 1838 after being destroyed by a landslide. Continuing south, we come to the small town that was a source of inspiration for the most infamous crime family to ever grace a page or screen, Corleone. Although the mafia family in the famed Godfather series is fictional, the bitter rivalry that once plagued this hill town was quite real. But modern times have brought a welcome change, marking a new, peaceful era for Corleone. Sicily's warm Mediterranean climate and fertile valleys have made agriculture the cornerstone of the island's economy. Once densely forested, the island has been cleared over time. Deforestation began when this region served as the grain belt for the Roman Empire. Situated on the southern coast is the city of Porto Empedocle. For more than 2,000 years, it's been a vital hub for transporting crops. And the biggest clue as to its importance in times past lies just inland. One of the most breathtaking collections of ancient Greek ruins outside of Athens, the Valley of the Temples. This 1,300-hectare archaeological park preserves the remains of what was once one of the most prosperous Greek colonies in Sicily, Archragus. Founded in 582 BC, it underwent a magnificent period of construction a century later, until their long-standing enemy, the Carthaginians, destroyed the city. Today, these remains are a UNESCO World Heritage Site and one of Sicily's main attractions. The most prominent feature are the magnificent ruins that overlook a ridge. At its highest point is the Temple of Juno, around 2,500 years old. In its day, this was where the goddess of women and marriage was worshipped and weddings took place. When the Carthaginians finally stormed the city, it was most likely burnt down, just leaving the stonework. Though it was never rebuilt, it was partially restored by a wealthy Italian prince as far back as 1787. It's the first recorded effort to preserve these ancient monuments for future generations. These temples were all built in what's known as the Doric order, a style of architecture that was sturdier and less fancy than later Greek designs, but nonetheless gave the building a more commanding look. In their prime, they would have been brightly painted in red, gold, and blue. Amongst the ruins is the most well-preserved Greek place of worship outside of Athens, the Temple of Concordia, built in 430 BC. It retains all 34 of its original limestone columns. Typically, the walls were made of mud bricks, which didn't fare well over time, but this place is an exception. Its current state of preservation is in part due to its conversion to a Christian basilica at the turn of the 7th century. The pagan idols were removed and the walls were reinforced. The oldest of the ruins is the Temple of Hercules, which dates to around 500 BC. Of the original 38 columns, 8 were restored and re-erected in the early 1920s. The temple was dedicated to the divine hero Hercules, but while he was an important figure, the greatest devotion was for the goddess of fertility and the harvest, Demeter and Persephone. This expansive area was set out for the worship of these two divinities. An intricate network of aqueducts surrounding the site has been uncovered. The channels were used to collect water for sacred rituals. Academics believe such practices were evidence of a society deeply rooted in agriculture. Archaeologists have also excavated an area known today as the Hellenistic Roman Quarter. This ancient settlement features an urban grid pattern developed as early as the 6th century BC. The Archaeological Museum, built in the 1960s, stands next to the ruins of the ecclesiasterion, an amphitheatre used for political meetings. This settlement was occupied for 900 years before the entire valley was abandoned during the Arab incursions of the 7th century. Once a thriving and prosperous Greek city, today these ruins serve as a window into Sicily's ancient past. To the east, in the province of Enna, is a reminder that the history of this island dates far beyond the ancient towns and temples of Greece. Overlooking the rugged valleys of the central region, we find the only major city of ancient Sicily not founded by foreign invaders. Perched on a plateau in the middle of the island is Enna. There's been a city here since 1200 BC, but like most of Sicily, this place has been subjected to a long series of foreign invaders, beginning with the arrival of the Greeks around 700 BC. Next came the Romans, who enslaved much of the local population. After years of tyranny, the first great rebellion against Rome began here in 137 BC, led by a slave named Euenus. The revolt lasted 5 years before Roman forces were able to sack the city and crush the rebellion. Today, Euenus is still hailed as a hero. Enna's most famous landmark is also one of the largest forts in southern Italy, Castello de Lombardia. Built in the 13th century, only 6 of its original 20 towers remain. The most well-preserved is the Tower of Pisa, which offers the best view in all of Sicily. On the clearest days, all 3 coastlines can be seen. After the castle lost its strategic importance, it served as a prison until the 1930s, when it was transformed into an open-air theatre called Teatro più vicino alla stella, the theatre closer to the stars. A variety of musical performances were held here until it closed in 1992. Today, the castle is open to the public and is Enna's most popular attraction. Across the vast, desolate landscape of central Sicily, is another relic of times past. These are the abandoned ruins of Castle Grasti. This stretch of rocky crag has served as an outpost since Greco-Roman times. But the fortress was likely built during the Arab-Norman era. The crumbling edifice is slowly being reclaimed by nature. The arid mountains give way to the rich, fertile plains of central Campania. Agriculture has expanded far beyond the wheat fields of old. More than 400 varieties of oranges are grown in Sicily. Although it's big business for towns like Pelagonia, tourism is playing a growing role in Sicily's economy. Many visitors come to explore Orientata Pantalica Natural Park. It was possibly considered a mystical place by the ancients, since these valleys hold around 4,000 tombs, some dating back almost 3,500 years. On Sicily's eastern shore lies Syracuse. The Shrine of Our Lady of Tears may be an unmistakable modern addition to the city's skyline, but its mix of architectural styles represents thousands of years of history. Founded by the Greeks around 730 BC, Syracuse prospered and soon became the most powerful Greek city in the entire Mediterranean. The famous Roman philosopher Cicero described this place as the greatest and most beautiful of all the Greek cities. It's made up of 5 districts, which have all retained their original ancient names. The oldest of these is the tiny island of Ortigia. Translating as Island of Quails, it measures only 1 kilometer in length and 500 meters at its widest point. Because Sicily was under Spanish rule at the height of the Renaissance, the styles that so characterized this period seem to have passed the island by. After the unification of Italy in 1865, much of the fortification walls were demolished and a bridge connecting the island was built. In this historic heart of Syracuse, reminders of past eras can be found at every turn. These ruins from the 7th century BC are all that remain of the Temple of Apollo, said to be the first great Doric temple in all of Sicily. At the southernmost tip of the island, we find evidence of Ortigia's strategic importance. The 13th century Castello Maniaci is an excellent example of Germanic fortress design, save for the round towers, which have retained their original Arabic style. Today, it's one of the most visited sites in Ortigia. Another popular spot is the Piazza Duomo, or Cathedral Square. The piazza's elegant semi-oval form is home to some of the most prized architecture in Syracuse. The Cathedral of Santa Maria della Colonnì features the original Doric columns of its previous incarnation as the Temple of Athena. After 2 major earthquakes in 1542 and 1693, much of the city had to be rebuilt. The flurry of construction gave rise to a freer, highly embellished Baroque style that's now so characteristic of Sicily. The materials used by the Greeks to build the great city of Syracuse came from this ancient complex of quarries. It's estimated that some 4.7 million cubic meters of stone were extracted from this site. The labyrinth also served as a prison, where thousands were sentenced to hard labor mining the rock. One of the tourist attractions here is this 3rd century Roman amphitheater. But the most visited ancient site in Syracuse is the nearby Greek theater, built in the 5th century BC. With 59 rows and a capacity to hold 15,000 people, it's one of the largest of its kind ever built. It's still used today for the Greek Theatre Festival, which takes place every summer. Ancient relics are not the only attraction Sicily has to offer. The island boasts more than 1,000 kilometers of beaches. Among the most popular are these golden sands of Catania, which stretch for more than 100 kilometers. And perched atop a rocky seaside cliff on the eastern shore is the picturesque village of Taormina, the most popular tourist destination in Sicily. Its history as a resort began with the Greek and Roman upper classes and continued with each new foreign invader. By the 19th century, Taormina had been elevated to a must-see destination on the Grand Tour for fashionable English gentlemen. With such consistent wealth over the centuries, the city has always been spared the periods of economic hardship suffered by other Sicilian towns. The city remains a magnet for the rich and famous from around the globe. The number one site to visit in Taormina is the ancient Greco-Roman theatre. The original was most likely built by the Greeks in the 3rd century BC. It was later restructured by the Romans, and most of what we see dates from the 2nd century AD. It's interesting to note that reserved seating existed even in Greek times. The names of the most affluent residents are still inscribed on some of the seats. Measuring more than 100 meters in diameter, it's the second largest ancient theatre in Sicily. The site was discovered rather humbly in 1892. A blacksmith was digging on the top of the hill when he hit upon some bricks. Word quickly spread, and archaeologists soon arrived to oversee the painstaking restoration project. Today, the theatre hosts a prestigious annual film festival, as well as summer theatrical performances and concerts. Taormina may have much to offer by way of luxury resorts and ancient ruins, but the city is undoubtedly most characterized by its natural beauty. The tiny island of Isola Bella, just off the shore, offers a unique way to experience nature. This watery path provides the island's only access by foot. It belonged to King Ferdinand I until 1806, when he gifted it to the city of Taormina. But it quickly fell into private hands. It wasn't until 1990 that the state purchased the island to serve as a resort and nature reserve for a variety of marine and wildlife species. Today, the Isola Bella is under the protection of the World Wildlife Fund. Naturally, Sicily has a deep connection with the sea. The Strait of Messina, which separates it from the Italian mainland, has been a vital trade route since the ancient Greeks. Though sailors no longer trade stories of sea monsters and sirens from the Odyssey, they do occasionally witness the Fata Morgana, a natural mirage that appears as a wall of water. Today, these vessels are in luck, as it looks like clear sailing ahead, at least for the moment. This is the view enjoyed by legions of tourists as they approach the runway of Reggio Calabria Airport. Originally built for the military in 1939, today it serves over 500,000 passengers each year. Crossing the Strait of Messina, we find this military vessel patrolling the waters. The Italian Navy currently has more than 60 vessels in commission. The fleet of the Reggio Marina provides a significant presence in the Mediterranean Sea. As we return to the shore, a brewing storm cloud looms overhead. The rumblings of thunder add an ominous air as we near the volcanic heart of eastern Sicily. Though we're careful to keep our distance from this fearsome cumulonimbus, it's reassuring that it's not the deadly billowing ash that has so often darkened these skies. Empires may rise and fall, but none has had a greater or more profound impact on Sicily than Mount Etna. At almost 3,500 meters, it's Europe's biggest active volcano. As we start our slow ascent along its flanks, clouds begin to obscure the summit. Fresh lava flow from recent eruptions has left everything in its path utterly scorched. Over the past decade, the volcano has undergone a period of increased activity and now erupts several times each year. The most violent eruption in recorded history was in 1669. 3,000 people living on the slopes were suffocated by the poisonous gases alone, before the lava and ash came bursting through. In all, more than 20,000 people were killed. As we get ever closer to the very top of Mount Etna, we pass several craters that are in themselves mini volcanoes. Most eruptions that occur are from these side vents, as they're known. They sometimes get blocked, causing the lava beneath to build under tremendous pressure. This leads to the violent explosive events that can cause so much damage and loss of life. This eerie and bleak sight tells us we're close to the summit and the main crater of Mount Etna. What there is to be seen through the rapidly building cloud cover shows very little signs of life. Something that has probably changed very little in the 500,000 years of its existence. But despite its awesome destructive power, the countless generations that have lived in its shadow have always regarded Etna with reverence. Today, it's still referred to as Mongibello, meaning beautiful mountain. And right now, the imminent storm over the volcano means we'll have to save our view of Etna's crater for another time, because it's simply getting too dangerous. We take an altogether safer place. That's also our final destination. The port city of Messina, the gateway of Sicily. It's been the most significant harbour in Sicily since Greek times. It's also the setting for Shakespeare's play, Much Ado About Nothing. Messina has borne more than its fair share of disasters. Over the past 3 centuries, the city has endured a plague, 2 massive earthquakes, and a devastating bombardment during the Second World War. It became known as the City of Ghosts, because so many people fled to safety in nearby towns. But in true Sicilian fashion, Messina forged ahead undaunted. This island, born of fire, has produced a people with a fiery spirit of fierce vitality. From the ashes of Mount Etna rose this ancient and extraordinary place. A beacon of hope across the sea, and a perfect place to end our journey.